Hi, everybody. It's Dr. Mark Waller. Welcome to Mastering Thought, our live stream on Thursday night, where we take people through the process of mastering their thought using moment mindfulness. And tonight we have a new guest, Paul. Paul is to my, whoops, he's to my left. Is that my left or my right?
That looks good.
And down below we have Simon, who is have become a staple on the live streams. And so,
Hello.
uh, Paul, why don't you kind of introduce yourself in terms of your exposure to the channel and what your background is in terms of this kind of um, teaching and so forth, and bring us up to speed on where you're at.
Well, I discovered the channel, I want to say a few months back on YouTube. I'm kind of like one of those people who's always seeking information. I'm almost kind of addicted to looking for the answers. So I'm exposed to a lot of content, psychologically related, meditation, philosophy, all that stuff. Was getting really into Carl Jung, audiobooks, just, fascinated by psychology, just through my own personal curiosity, for my own personal issues that I've had dealing with, like, mental health problems. And, a long time ago, I was diagnosed with like bipolar, manic depressive stuff. So I'd been in and out of therapy for a very long time.
Uh-huh.
Um, I'm seeing a counselor, or a therapist right now, who's saying that I'm actually showing a lot of symptoms of OCD as well. So just kind of like on a personal journey of searching for answers, I've kind of gotten obsessed with looking for answers outside of myself. And that's how I was
Okay.
able to kind of find the channel, because it probably popped up through my feed because I'm always looking at this type of stuff.
Yeah.
And it did strike me as a little different than the normal information that I was getting. And the practical application of it, seemed to be a lot more tangible than some of the other information that I've gotten.
Great. So did you find the channel searching, or did it pop up in your feed, or what happened?
Uh, no, it popped up in my feed, and I can't
Okay.
remember specifically what the video was or what it was, but it started to, the algorithm picks up on what you like, and I found myself liking the videos and saving the videos. And you know, the simplified process of it was very intriguing, and kind of touched on some ideas that I had already inherently kind of discovered, like separating yourself from yourself in a way, like not in a disassociative way, but just
Right.
recognizing that you're outside. You can observe yourself in like the metacognition form.
Yeah.
The way that you articulate it, though, is was profound for me.
Oh, good. Simon, I'm going to have you bring us up to date and basically tell us your background as well, so we can kind of fit that in. Before I do, if you're listening, I've got the comments up. You have a question or a comment, put it in there and we'll address it. Go ahead. How did you discover us, Simon? It's been a while since
Uh,
I heard this.
Paul is a really good articulator. So I almost want to take his exact words. I'm psychologically like interested too. I've been digging within myself, just digging and digging, like concept after concept. I'm addicted to concepts. So the more like mindsets and more like mind frames and like I'm trying to build a castle in my head, and I realize it's not working. So I'm creating my own suffering. And some way, somehow, the algorithm realized all these videos I'm searching for solutions. I came upon some of your videos, and once it realized I liked them, and um, I went into this rabbit hole of asking ChatGPT maybe 200 questions, and then boiling it down to like 5 specific ones that I was able to like interact with you about. And
Uh-huh.
then once I got a good response, like, hey, man, these are good questions. Where are you getting these questions from? I realized, man, I should just stick with it. Yeah, I'm a just habitually conceptualizer, and I can't seem to like get out of the cave. I need to like check in on my concepts before I externalize things. And man, is it a fight. It is just a teeter totter. I'm sitting on a teeter totter, trying my mind to like get it my way. And that's where my ego gets birth. It just takes
Uh-huh.
just like a fireball inside. Like, I gotta get my way. And I put like a I in my head before I able to like just interact with true reality. So it's like this
Mhm.
false concept that I'm trying to fight. I have a false
Interesting.
concept of the world that I'm trying to get out of. And I think your solutions, man, I hope I could like cling on to it. I just don't know how to get like biofeedback if I'm doing it correctly. I don't have any progress. I
Right.
don't know if I've made any progress. So
So
that's where I am.
let me just tell everybody who's listening or who will listen to the recording, this coming Saturday, I did a special session with Simon because Simon is like the ambassador of overthinkers. You know, you've heard that phrase, the devil's advocate. Well, Simon's the devil's ambassador, so he's a graduated higher than
Yeah,
that. So
yeah.
anyway, we did a special 45-minute discussion on overthinking, and it's absolutely fascinating. And I would encourage you to subscribe and hit the bell icon, so when that comes live on Saturday, you'll be able to see this discussion that the two of us had. And it's just something you don't want to miss. All right, we lost Paul there. Hopefully, Paul will
Oh,
pop back.
nope, no,
There he is. There he's coming back.
no, no, no. I'm sorry about that. Sorry.
No problem. You're kind of frozen, but you're coming back.
I'm here.
All right. So before we go on, let me talk about my experience and what led me here and the practice of moment mindfulness. So I've been a licensed marriage family therapist for about 30 years, almost 30 years, and about 35 or 40 years ago, I had a mystical awakening experience. Completely changed my life, and it happened at the end of a very dark night of the soul where I lost everything. And if you remember the LA riots, you know, when everything was on fire and the Rodney King riots and everything, well, that's when I had my awakening. That's how far back it was. And what what happened was I realized that I'd always wanted to help people, and I had kind of an interest in personal growth. And so after that awakening, I could see things so differently that I went back to school, became a psychotherapist. The process of becoming a marriage family therapist takes about 6 years, if not longer. And when I started working with people, I realized right away, based on my awakening experience, that what people needed to do was they needed to be able to witness or watch their thoughts. And so I began to share that with my clients, and I had mixed results. And then one day I realized what my problem was. People did not know what a thought was, literally. They had an idea what a thought was, but they didn't realize that the voice in their head that sounded like them talking to themselves was in fact also a thought. And so when I started to point out that the internal dialogue was a thought and it wasn't who they were, they started having their own awakening experiences. And as a result of that, I became a psychotherapist for many years, and I developed this exercise called Moment Mindfulness. And here it is. So let's go through this, because this is what the gentlemen this evening are going to be referring to. You sit with your eyes open, because we want you to be able to do this in your daily walk of life. You know, when you're at the grocery store, you're driving your car, you know, you're at the beauty salon, you sit with your eyes open and you just wait for the next everyday thought. Two things very important about that. Number one, you don't generate a thought, you wait for a thought, because thoughts are always happening, and a thought will drift into your mind. And it's also extremely important that you only do this on trivial, everyday, ordinary thoughts like, I need to get milk at the store, or it's time for me to change the oil in the car. We don't want to do this um, on emotional thoughts or negative thoughts, because that means that fight or flight has been triggered, and the entire brain now is flooded with survival, and the benefit of moment mindfulness is to be separate from a thought, and you can't do that when you're in fight or flight mode. So you wait for the next ordinary everyday thought, and then you just notice the fact that you're thinking. The content of the thought is not important. You're just noticing the function of thought. So as soon as it registers that you're experiencing a thought, and you will know that you're experiencing a thought because you will hear the words of your language in your mind. And as soon as you notice that you're thinking, the thought goes away. And we can explain why that happens later on. But you can't observe a thought and think the thought at the same time. And so the thought goes away. And that's the end of the exercise. So you don't analyze the thought. You don't talk back to the thought. If the thought starts up again, we don't care about that. All we care about is that moment when you become the observer and the thought stops. And so that is the exercise of moment mindfulness. It's very counterintuitive because we're only working on small thoughts. But what you're doing is you're changing the wiring in your brain around your relationship with thought itself. And this results in a thing I call disidentification. So there is a moment. Sometimes it takes a place over the course of a week or so, but sometimes it's a very powerful moment, and you realize you're not the voice in your head, and then you go free. It's an awakening experience. So if you're listening to this and you have any questions on this, any comments, put them in the comments. We're watching that as we go along this evening. So who wants to go first and respond to what I just went through? Paul, what about you? What did you think of the exercise moment mindfulness?
Well, I like the practical application of it being that something that you can do throughout your day and you can work
Right.
on, with every little thought that comes in your head. And at first, when I started trying to do it, it was, of course, those extreme negative thoughts that seem to be at the forefront that are hard to
Right.
ignore anyway. You're not
Right.
even paying attention to the little stuff. So that
Exactly.
was an interesting concept of how you broke that down, where you do those ones first and it leads to being able to control some of those bigger thoughts, the disidentifying with them. We were discussing, it was like a thing about identity, and this is kind of a little bit off topic with that, but I was actually watching something yesterday where they were talking about like Kobe Bryant, and at one point in his career, he was in a lot of trouble and he was having like a really hard time and he wasn't performing well. And they literally gave him a new identity. They started calling him like the Black Mamba or something. It was almost like marketing. But by giving him this new name and this new identity, he started performing really well and was
Wow.
scoring really high. And just by renaming himself, he was able to kind of start over in a way. So
Uh-huh.
I've kind of hijacked some of that information. I go, well, what if I just kind of gave myself a new name and just left that old identity behind, including all of those thoughts that I
Uh-huh.
identified with. Um,
Really, well,
so
what you're saying is interesting because it actually works the exact opposite. You have an identity, but you have accepted the wrong identity based on your ego mind and everything about survival. And so what we do here is we remove the false self, and it reveals the true self that was there all along. And
yeah,
so,
I suppose it's like when someone looks at me, they wouldn't assume that I feel that way about myself.
uh-huh.
Kind of like when you look
Hi,
at somebody
Rosie.
and you can kind of see them for who they are, but you're not
Right.
inside their head.
That's right.
So if I was able to look at myself from another person's viewpoint, um, I wouldn't have any of those thoughts.
Right.
Most people tell me, "Oh, you're doing really well," from the outside, and then once you start talking to them and you're saying all this stuff, they realize it doesn't match the reality. And
Right.
what he was saying earlier was like, I don't know, like I don't have a reference point of like what's going on. And when I just had a meeting with one of my therapists recently, they said, "What's your goal after this?" And I was like, I want to have a better idea of what's actually going on in my life, not my perceived idea of it. Like I need to
Uh-huh.
calibrate myself to reality so I can make better decisions,
Wow.
from where I'm
Wow.
actually at, not from where I think I'm at, because there's a miscongruence there. It's obvious
Yep.
that's enough for me to see.
Yep. Go ahead and
Yeah.
respond to that, Simon. I can see you nodding your head. And hi, Rosie, and hi, Daniel. It's nice to see you both
Uh,
tonight.
there's a great book called Alter Ego about that entire process of renaming yourself. It's called the Alter Ego or the Super Ego, and they go through example after example of athletes and actresses, like singers, who've given themselves new names to perform better. Like Beyonce was one of those examples where she started calling her Sasha or someone else and not Beyonce. But
Right.
Sasha Fierce, she called herself, and suddenly she could step outside the Beyonce character.
Uh-huh.
Um, Man, Mark, I'm having a really hard time with your exercise because I get into like visual concepts in my head.
Uh-huh.
The voice you want me to disidentify with is like a comedian on stage with a microphone, yeah? And I'm performing on stage and I'm going through like a soliloquy because I'm talking to myself.
Right. Right.
However, in the context where I do this, there's an audience of faces I could see or I can't recognize, but
Right.
they start heckling me. So my truth becomes heckled and challenged. So I'm on stage in my head trying to fight for my perspective and my truth. And I'm trying to all day long. I wake up with hecklers and I go to sleep with hecklers, and I'm all day in my head trying to establish a better future, or I'm trying to recreate or reimagine what the past was like and how to like retort or
Right.
respond to something from 6 years ago, an argument. But I'm on stage trying to like prove myself, and that's where my ego gets worked up. Um, and you want me to disidentify with the guy who talks to himself on
No,
stage in his head?
no.
I don't know what the tool is, how to drop it. I don't know how to drop
I,
the microphone and
I, I,
exist.
I understand, but see, I don't want you to disidentify. Disidentification happens naturally when you do the exercise. So you don't have to try. The beauty of this is you don't have to try to stop thinking. You don't have to try positive thinking. You don't have to
Yeah,
try to discover your true self. All
right.
you need to do is the exercise. And what the exercise does is it proves to you
Yeah.
in real time that that voice is not who you are. But, you know, my challenge to you, Simon, is to realize that you are having normal, everyday, trivial thoughts all day long. And those are the key to unlocking the prison doors, not the ones you just described.
Well, I mean, I go into flight or fight. I know that's where the audience is, right? That's where the
Yeah, right,
context,
right,
like that, it creates that fight or flight
right,
environment.
right.
But the guy that I could be anyone on stage. I could pretend to be Batman in my head, but I'm
Okay,
still need to use that tool to like navigate where I'm going. Hey, I'm going to be late for this meeting with Mark. I need to make a left here, make a right there. I better cut through this street, and I'm narrating those ideas in my head. I don't have
all
to
right.
like pretend I'm myself, or I don't have to believe I'm myself, but I just need that tool in my head to
No.
navigate my life.
So
I
when
don't know
you're
how to let
trying
that
to,
go.
sorry,
I just don't know how to let that tool go. It's like I'm
I'm
sure
not
it might.
asking, I'm not asking you to let the tool go. What I'm asking you to is observe when you're having a thought. Let's see what Rosie says here. I do kind of understand how to see the thoughts separate from myself, but right away go back to just getting lost in thoughts. How to stay consistent on the awareness of I am not my thoughts. Okay, so again, this is the same trap. You don't have to worry about the fact that you're not your thoughts. All you need to do is the exercise. You don't have to convince yourself something you don't believe. But what I'm asking you to do is ignore all the disturbing thoughts, ignore being on stage, talking to an audience, all that other stuff. But when you're on the way to the store and you think, oh, I need to remember to get milk, can you
Yeah,
become aware that that is a thought?
definitely. I
It's
know it is. I'm
okay.
confident that I know the distinction. I've worked so hard to
Okay.
conceptualize my life. I know that I'm
Okay.
the one who creates it. I create that
So,
world in my head.
are you willing to drop everything and just notice when you're having a trivial thought and just become the observer of it? That's it. That's all we're doing.
Yeah, I think I've gone past that. I don't know what I'm supposed to realize afterwards.
Well, if you'd gone past it, you wouldn't ask that question. See,
It's
once
like
you realize, and see, let me correct something that Paul said,
yeah,
because I understand what he said and I know why he's saying it. We're not graduating from the simple thoughts to the more disturbing thoughts. Um, what we're doing is we're altering our relationship to thought itself. So once you realize that you're not the voice in your head by doing the exercise on simple thoughts, your
yeah,
relationship to all the negative thoughts simultaneously changes as well.
and like
So,
it, we're just stating the obvious. I mean, if I take a pinch, this pinch here, right? Everything on the inside of this pinch in my head is nothing but auditory hallucinations or visual hallucinations. And like Paul was saying, on the outside of this pinch, the pinch that you guys could see, I look good, I look stoic, I look like
uh-huh,
my life is okay, everything looks fine, because that's the judgment you guys are making about the pinch. But everything
right.
on the inside of it, man, it's nothing but auditory and visual hallucinations and delusions. And I realize that that's what thought is. My
You
personality is nothing but a delusion.
you don't realize that when you're experiencing it. You realize it before and afterward, but the minute it starts to happen, you get sucked in to identifying with it. So
Yeah, yeah. I'm trying to
my
like uh, in the chaos. I can't leave the chaos. It's like I'm trying to
uh-huh,
surf the chaos. I'm trying to
right.
make something of the chaos. I keep going
Yeah.
back to war.
And I'm asking you to not worry about that, to just
Yeah,
notice when there is no chaos and there's a small voice that says, I need to trim my beard tomorrow.
yeah,
And if you could just focus on that and let all this other frustration, I understand what you're saying. Now,
yeah.
what we're talking about tonight specifically, I got this question. Um, if somebody can explain how to pronounce that, what's the exercise? The exercise is this. Let's go back to the exercise. It's called Moment Mindfulness, and what you do is you just sit with your eyes open, or you can stand. It doesn't matter. You can be driving a car, and you just wait for the next thought. The next thought might be, I wonder if Yesami. Oh, okay. Uh, you wait for the next thought. The next thought might be, I'm going to be late to the hairdresser, or I wonder if it's going to rain again tomorrow. And all you do is stand back and just notice the fact that you're thinking. And it's the instant you notice that you're thinking, the voice in your head stops, because there are networks in your brain that switch at that point. And if you do that often enough, you don't have to be relentless. If you do it 2 or 3 times a day consistently for a week or two, there will be a moment where you suddenly realize that you're actually the observer. You never were the thinker. And that process is called disidentification. Let's see what she says here. Yes, me. I see it before and after, but I get sucked in and fully asleep in the middle. It's so okay. So let me just go back to this. This comment explains exactly why we want to do this on simple thoughts, because simple thoughts don't suck you in. Okay, if you're thinking my life is horrible and I want to die, that thought is going to suck you in. But if you're thinking, it's time for me to get a pedicure, that thought is not going to suck you in. And so being sucked in is counterproductive. That won't help you awaken. But if you are able to stand back in the midst of having a thought like, I need to get a pedicure, and realize that there is a voice speaking English words in your head talking about a pedicure, and you're the observer of it, if you do that exercise often enough, all of a sudden it clicks and you realize, wait a minute, the voice in my head that sounds like me talking to me is not me. And that disidentification carries over to all your thoughts, including the negative thoughts and all the ones that you're talking about, Simon. Go ahead, Paul. You have a comment at this point?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, you're sounding good.
I can completely relate to that. And when I have like a benign thought, which I've been practicing, like, oh, I need to wash my hair or get a haircut,
Right.
it doesn't register the same as like, oh, my job is terrible. I'll never get married. I have a whole negative story but that is
Why
just so
is
much louder.
why is that important?
The benign thought, it's almost like I'm not interested in it.
I
It's
well,
just,
that's the problem. See, the
yeah.
problem is your ego tells you what's important and what's not important. And I'm telling you, you're being told a lie. I'm telling
Mhm.
you that the most important thoughts that are keeping you trapped in the world of thought are your simple, trivial thoughts, not your negative thoughts.
Yeah. That was the
And so,
concept that you'd mentioned in a few videos back, and that we are talking about right now. And
right. See,
I've tried,
you cannot,
I've tried,
I'm sorry.
and I've started to try to use that route myself because I see the logic behind that.
So, so,
Those ones that kind of open the door a little bit because they're not so aggressive.
so what I'm saying to you is the key to disidentification is the small, non-emotional thoughts. But what happens is the ego loves a project and it doesn't want to do something that simple. It wants to do something it thinks is more important. And as long as your ego has you convinced that all these negative, dramatic thoughts are the most important thing you need to work on, you're not going to listen to me and you're not going to do this practice. And I'm okay with that. Do it your way. But the battlefield out there is strewn with the wounded and the dead of people who have tried to have better thoughts, and they're trying to solve the problem of thought from inside of the system of thought. What moment mindfulness does is it moves you outside of the system of thought so you become the observer. And eventually, as you experience yourself as the observer, you realize you're the observer and not the thinker. And then what happens is it opens a door where you realize you're not even the observer. You're the awareness that's been watching the whole time. And that's true liberation. So as long as you believe you're the thinker, and thinking is bad, and you're going to, if anybody watched my last video that came out last Saturday, I have this analogy about the house. The house represents the mind. And it turns out the house is infested with mice and fleas and cockroaches. And if you stay inside the house of thoughts to battle the thoughts, it's a losing battle. And so if that's what you want to do, go ahead. The internet is full of people telling you, you know, what you need to do about those thoughts. And the battlefield is strewn with people who have tried it that way and have failed. And they've been doing meditation for 20 years and they went to the retreat and they bought the t-shirt and the book and they had it signed by the guy who wrote the book and they've done all this stuff, but their lives fundamentally have not changed and their relationships are in shatters and they feel like they're broken. Okay, what I'm offering is something so ultimately simple, is just notice that you're having a thought. Are you able to even notice that you're thinking? Because we all have a running commentary in our heads. And if we don't know that we have a running commentary or we don't believe it's important, our lives become the running commentary. And that's why the world is the way it is, because we all think we are the running commentary and we keep doing the same thing over and over again that we don't like because the commentator is telling us to do it. And we think that commentator has authority because we believe it's ourselves. And I'm telling you, the commentator is not who you are. The narrator is not who you are. And you are not the story that the narrator is telling you to live. I'm offering you a simple way out But if you want to hang on to the belief that you need to go battle those negative thoughts, then you're going to be stuck there forever. And you're not going to get out of that house, because that's not the way to defeat the enemy. Questions? Comments? Here I go. I'm on my soapbox box. Sorry.
Well, you know,
You have a question or a
I
comment,
noticed.
put it in the
Oh,
comments. Go
sorry.
ahead, Paul. I'm sorry. I had stepped on you.
Oh, no, no, it's okay. You know, the thing that I did realize about myself is that simple answer isn't what I wanted. I wanted
That's
like a
right.
complex
Yes.
puzzle that's unsolved. It's like an unsolvable puzzle. So
Right.
once I replace it or solve it, I have to have something else become my fixation.
That's
And
right.
it was never about some external situation. It was this void of like, I need to solve, I need to fix. And sometimes that's good if you need to fix your car or something like that. But when it's always running that way, you know, you're creating more of the simple answer basically doesn't register.
Right. Exactly. It doesn't appeal to the ego. The ego wants to fight. You know,
Yeah.
this is not about fighting. This is second order change, where you step outside of the problem system, and on the outside of the problem doesn't look like the problem it looked like from inside the problem. Jet, welcome. It's good to see you again tonight. After my watched thought is noticed and disappears, what's next? What? So if the basic, let me ask a basic question beyond just that. If you didn't have a voice in your head talking to you, what would be left? Let's try it. Let's all do the moment mindfulness exercise. Wait for the next thought. In the instant you notice you're thinking, what happens to the voice in your head? Now you can't grab a hold of it. You can't grab a hold of it or judge it or try to fix it. You're just passively watching your own mental activity. The instant you watch the voice in your head, what happens to the thought? Now we've got two analyzers with us tonight. That makes this a little hard. But when you notice that you're thinking, the thought immediately goes away. My question is, what's left? What's left? Thank you, Jet. It disappears. Let me put this up. It disappears. Okay, what's left when the thought disappears, Jet? You can type in your answer. When the voice in your head disappears and stops, even only for a second, what is left? If you're listening to this, type your answer in the comments. So the narrator isn't us, but the narrator convinces itself essentially that it is us. It's exactly the opposite. We convince ourselves that we are the narrator, but this is because it's rapid thoughts cycling, reinforcing itself, and ultimately we aren't any of that. That is correct. That's correct. Oh, Jet says, uh, she says, without thought, nothing. Jet says, I feel calm. That's the answer to the original question. Let me see if I can. So when Jet answered, when the thought disappears, what's next? What's next is the real you. See, the real you is not the voice in your head. The real you is the awareness that's there when the thought goes away. This is the answer to what Paul was talking about, the real you, the real personality. If you want to experience your true self, you don't have to go on a quest to find yourself. Just stop believing in the mistaken belief that you are your thoughts. The instant you realize you're not your thoughts, you discover your true self, because it's been behind the thoughts the whole time. It's the awareness that's been watching. Now that I've made everybody really uncomfortable, so now here's getting back to what Paul was saying, and I really appreciate the way you articulated that. You know, we have two analyzers on tonight. Paul and Simon both live in their heads a lot. They're both unicorns. If you're familiar with my lion unicorn model of relationships, you know that unicorns are all about fear and safety. If you're a lion, on the other hand, the other type, you're all about getting approval and feeling rejected. Okay, so this explains overthinking from an analyzer's point of view. Analyzers are trying to get safe by giving themselves a false sense of control by analyzing the hell out of everything. Because if they can predict what's going to happen next, they're going to be okay. And
Right.
that's what all this mental fury is all about. How does that land with you guys? Simon?
Well, it's almost dangerous not to analyze. I see it as a danger because it's like I need to run simulations in my head of where I'm going, what's happening, what Friday tomorrow's Friday. I'm gonna run simulation after simulation about the best Friday I could have. Man,
Right.
I should visit this breakfast spot in the morning. I
Uh,
think I know where I'm gonna go for lunch. Man, at 5 o'clock tomorrow, Friday, I know what's happening. I know how to have a good time. These are just commentaries, right? I'm gonna plan it out. But if I
so what?
don't do that in my head, it's like I got to take life at face value and I have to make split
Wow.
second decisions. If I plan ahead of time, then I don't have to be so nervous when the time comes for breakfast, when the time comes for lunch. I
This
don't
is
have to be such a frantic mess. I need to plan it out.
so
And
what Simon is doing is he just validated everything I said.
yeah, yeah,
He just said the reason he thinks so much is because he's afraid. It literally came right out of his mouth.
it's true. Hard to admit,
So,
but it's true.
so anxiety is what drives analysis and overthinking. Not all
Yeah, it has
overthinking,
to be.
but yeah, it has to be. And so,
Has to be.
so and this goes back to our conversation we were having Monday was that, you know, everything you're describing is about fear, except there's something missing. And that is the real time experience of the fear itself is not there.
Man, yeah,
And so what you have done and what all analyzers do to a large extent is they have dealt with this for so many years they don't even know the fear is there.
yeah,
And so
yeah,
the question is when you get in touch with the fear, you said, and I'm not saying experience the fear, I'm saying acknowledge that it's there. You know, we don't want to go take a swimming pool dive into the fear. That's not the point, which is what most therapy does. But, you know, all behavior is driven by emotion and analysis is driven by anxiety. But if you've been
yeah,
doing it so long and you're so deep into it, you don't know that you're anxious. But if you study psychology, you'll find out that the original voice in your head came from egocentric speech, and it's what children do to soothe themselves when they're under stress. And so the whole purpose of the internal dialogue starts in early childhood, and it's to make ourselves feel better. And so the analysis is there to give you a sense of calm and peace, which never comes, by the way, but it's an attempt to get that feeling because it gives you a false sense of control. And I defy you to prove to me that all the methodical planning you do for your day turns out the way you had planned that it would. Life has a way of not following our best laid plans.
right. But
So Jet says, I think something difficult for us to understand is if thought disappears, how do I figure out this math problem? How do I, so you, so here's the whole problem. You don't do math by talking to yourself. I'm sorry. You don't say 2 plus 2 equals 4. That's not math. That's just repeating words. You know non-verbally that 2 plus 2 equals 4. That's math. So we don't have to talk to ourselves to know that 2 plus 2 equals 4. We don't have to solve an equation by speaking it out loud. We know the principles when we look at it, and we can solve it without saying words in our head. Now, when we get the answer, we blurt out the answer. But the process of doing the math in our head is nonverbal.
Man.
Sorry. Paul, what are you thinking right now? Are you sorry you joined the live stream tonight? Paul, I can't hear you. Sorry.
Myself.
Simon, can you hear me?
Sorry, I muted
Oh,
myself.
there he is. There he is.
I muted myself. Sorry.
Uh,
No, this is a good conversation, and it hits on a lot of things that I've thought about. This is right up my alley. And it comes down to the analysis thing. I've always, pictured myself as that. I mean, I'll talk to AI until it gets sick of me. You know what I mean? Because I'm trying to
yeah,
beat the dead horse, and it's like you've been talking about this for months now.
right.
It's like I like the process of mulling it over. And I have had some epiphanies about like, the fear. And at first I had this epiphany like, oh, I'm really lonely. And then, but downstream of loneliness is fear. That's a week later, I realized, no, the loneliness is based out of the fear. And
Uh-huh.
I realized, oh, okay, so deep down, I'm very afraid. And, when you talk about when I was a young kid, I remember when I would go to bed, I would lay in bed and I would really get under the covers and I would just like to sit there and think. That was like something I liked to do. I wasn't thinking about anything. It was just like I like this little thing, like I'm going to think this out, even though it wasn't
Uh-huh.
really tangible. It was like a mechanism, like you said, to kind of feel safe. So the results of my life of like when I do get a job or I find a great deal on a car or get a date or a relationship, they never occurred because I was thinking about them.
That's
And it's
correct.
kind of like the autopilot of like you're going to work and
Right,
you're not paying attention to where you're driving and you're like, heck, how did I get here?
right.
Like I know that that's more intuitively how I should approach life. But and once I start, but there's also a part of me that goes, well, you stressing and thinking about this stuff helps. Like I do have a belief
Yeah.
that by doing all that extra stuff, maybe that has led to some of my success, because of the extra stress or the
Uh-huh.
over analysis or the solving when, if I just let it go on, like you said, how am I going to buy milk if I don't think about it? Well, you're going to go do it. You don't need to figure it out.
Right,
But it's that urge to, you really believe that it's helping you,
right.
that somewhere in the past you had that idea that overthinking, that anxiety was part of the process that was helping you be successful.
So let me tell you something that'll prove that what your ego is telling you, both of you guys, is complete utter nonsense. Let me let me pose a question to you, and I want to get to this comment here. Um, if you were deaf from birth, would you have a voice in your head?
Man. Is there a left without a right? I don't know.
It's
That
impossible.
that one that one makes me
Impossible.
not think about anything.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
so if you're deaf from birth, you've never heard language, so you cannot articulate words in your head. So there's no possible way someone who's deaf from birth, who's never heard language, has an internal dialogue.
yeah.
And
Right.
they can buy milk all day long. They just sign it and they buy milk.
Yeah,
So everything you're saying, everything you've been taught to believe about this thing is inaccurate. It's not true. So let's get to this comment. So if then who we are is pure thoughtless awareness, do we end up doing nothing? No, see, that's the whole point. So we have a choice. We can either live the life that thought dictates to us, or we can live the life that's actually there, that's available to us. Because, was it the Buddha said, with your thoughts you create your world? If you're sick of your world, go look at your thoughts. So no, we don't just turn into Jabba the Hutt and sit on a bench for the rest of our lives. What we do is we experience life. Instead of thinking life, we live life. And so as long as you're stuck in your head, believing you're the voice in your head, you're going to live the life dictated to you by the voice in your head. When you stop believing in the voice in your head, you're going to live the life that is the reality that you're swimming in all the time. And you're never going to see that as long as you're only looking at the narrow view that the internal narrator is giving you. All right, we're completely out of time. I'll stay on long enough to take another comment or two and get a wrap-up thought from Paul and Simon. I think this has been absolutely another amazing conversation, because this is where the rubber meets the road, right here. This is the real deal. It's either true or it's not, and if it's true, we have a long way to go. Thank you, Sino. Appreciate the heart. Paul, anything to wrap up tonight, and then we'll go to Simon.
Um, yeah, as you speak, I feel like I've had glimpses of like what you're talking about and how there's a reality outside of my thoughts. And it is kind of scary to like look at that for the first time. Um, and I kind of feel like even at that point, I like try to justify like, well, it's so strong in me.
Right.
It comes back. So even though I get glimpse of it, and let's say I've had success with this and I have my days where I'm able to do it, it seems to come back strong because it
Mhm.
seems to be
Right.
part of who I am. And I feel like me just saying that might be me trying to defend
Hmm.
that and not
Yes.
let go, because
That's
Yeah.
I'm saying, no, 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 it's
yeah.
so much a part of who I am.
That's right.
Uh, 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 and I can't hold on to it, but I
Right.
get glimpses of it at this
Right.
time. I do get glimpses of it.
Good. Good. So this is kind of opening, you know, um, a new vista for you, and I'm happy to be a part of it. Um, but that is a struggle with your ego, because your ego knows that if you go down this road with simple moment mindfulness, you're going to wake up and it's going to suffer a severe blow and possibly die. And you won't be right, you'll be free. So Simon,
Yeah.
what are your final thoughts this evening?
Um, it
I
makes
love
sense that it's about survival and anxiety. It's like if I'm practicing how to be a race car driver in a simulation so that I
right.
avoid making the turns and the braking time. I know how to, guide my course. So when it comes to
Uh-huh.
real world driving out there, when the consequences are crucial or fatal, then
Right.
at least I know how to like maneuver my life. I know how to get around the bends, socially speaking.
Right.
So it's the simulation versus actual life, my presence. This is my presence. And then I take a hike into my head and I sit in a simulator and I do it here before I do it, so
That's
I don't
right.
kill myself out there, like get into an
Right.
embarrassing situation.
That's there. You just tapped again. There's the mocking. So
Yeah,
I
I don't want
really
to be mocked.
appreciate both of you guys coming on, because you've been vulnerable. You've been willing to listen to my ranting here, and we hope you both come back next Thursday at 6:15. We'll have another live stream, and we really appreciate your comments and supporting the channel. Um, One more comment here. Sino says, I recognize that I am not the voice in my head. I realize I can finally start living what's truly in front of me and appreciate the moments for what it is, instead of being trapped in my thoughts, fears. I'm just going to make a comment. Um, you're listening. That comment came from somebody who has done moment mindfulness and had a breakthrough recently. Yes, that's right. You don't do math by talking to yourself. Rosie, it was nice having you. Welcome everybody to the channel. Come back next week and we'll have some more fun. If you'd like to join me and be part of this, reach out to me, and as Paul did today, and we'll have you on our happy group here. And also, if you'd like some one-on-one help, please reach out to me, and I'm available for one-on-one coaching. And we have a lot of other resources that we can help you with to get you on this path of freedom from your head. So thank you, everybody, and we will see you next week. Thanks, Paul and Simon. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Hang on for a second, you guys.